How old were you? You were a kid then, right?
I was.
Yeah.
I was too young.
Too young?
Al Pacino doesn't raise his voice. He doesn't throw chairs, slam doors, or turn Hollywood arguments into tabloid theater. When Pacino is done with someone, he doesn't erupt, he evaporates. He goes quiet, dead quiet. And when Al Pacino cuts you out, you don't even hear the cut. You only notice the absence. The invitations stop coming. The calls stop ringing. The collaboration that could have been never happens again. In an industry addicted to drama, his silence is the sharpest weapon of all. For half a century, Pacino has carried the emotional spine of modern cinema: Serpico, The Godfather, Dog Day Afternoon, Scarface, Heat, Scent of a Woman. His roles aren't just performed. They detonate. But what most fans never see is how those explosions sometimes happen off camera, too. Pacino's intensity isn't a character choice. It's who he is. And that intensity has cost him co-stars, directors, entire careers' worth of potential partnerships. He doesn't burn bridges, he buries them, quietly, permanently. And the strange part? Pacino never needed a public feud. He never wrote a tell-all book. He never savaged anyone in interviews. He never humiliated a co-star on late-night TV. Instead, he built something more dangerous than a rivalry: a private list. A mental archive of actors, directors, and collaborators he would never touch again. Some walked away thinking everything was fine. Only years later did they realize there was never going to be a second act. But tonight, we're reopening the vault, because after decades of whispers, set stories, abandoned projects, and closed-door revelations, 7 actors stand out as the ones Pacino quietly froze out. Not because they were bad, not because they were untalented, but because something in the chemistry snapped, and when the chemistry snapped with Pacino, it never returned. This is the side of Al Pacino the public never sees: the disappointment, the resentment, the quiet verdict. And if you stick around to the end, the final name, the newest addition to this list, is someone Pacino respected deeply, until one incident changed everything. Let's begin, but not where you expect. Let's begin with the man Pacino once idolized, the one whose shadow he eventually stepped out of, then walked away from forever: Marlon Brando. The Titan, the benchmark every young actor studied, copied, absorbed. When Pacino first stepped on the set of The Godfather, he wasn't standing next to a co-star. He was standing next to a myth. Brando was unpredictable, mercurial, magnetic in ways no acting school could explain. But he was also protected. When Brando showed up late, the studio shrugged. When he resisted direction, the press called him rebellious. When he rewrote lines or ignored blocking, the producers chalked it up to genius. Pacino, meanwhile, was a nobody at the time. He got no leeway, no grace, no forgiveness for mistakes, and that imbalance carved a scar. When awards season hit, Brando won Best Actor. Pacino, who carried half the movie, was nominated for supporting. He refused to attend the ceremony. It wasn't jealousy. It was a quiet acknowledgement of a system he felt was rigged. Over the years, Pacino praised Brando's talent, but the warmth never returned. They never reunited on screen. They rarely spoke afterward. Pacino moved on, and in a strange way, distanced himself from the man he once worshipped. Sometimes the deepest rift is the one you never talk about. Now let's shift to someone very different, someone younger, hungrier, and far less mythic: Michelle Pfeiffer. Most fans never knew this, but Scarface nearly didn't have Pfeiffer at all, because Pacino didn't want her. He saw her as unproven, too soft, too delicate for the razor-sharp ice queen that was Elvira. She felt his disapproval the moment she walked into the audition room. He barely looked at her. But De Palma saw what Pacino didn't: a diamond just waiting to cut through the screen. She won the role, but she never won Pacino. On set, he kept his distance. No warm-up conversations, no encouragement, nothing. After filming, Hollywood assumed such an iconic pairing would reunite someday. But Pacino never extended the invitation. The door simply stayed shut, quiet, final. Then comes the one that shocked even industry insiders: Robert De Niro. To the public, they are cinematic brothers, 2 lions of American acting. But in truth, they are opposites. De Niro disappears into roles through obsessive preparation. Pacino arrives like a hurricane, guided by instinct. During Heat, the tension was subtle but real. They didn't socialize. They didn't bond. They didn't trade stories. They showed up, delivered, and retreated into separate worlds. On The Irishman, the distance was even clearer. Scorsese served as a buffer. Their chemistry on camera was gold, but off camera, they were strangers. Pacino once said, "We're not friends, we just show up." That wasn't cruelty, it was truth. And then, the new addition to this list. Someone almost nobody expects. Someone Pacino respected, admired, and quietly hoped to collaborate with again until one disagreement made him walk away forever. That name is Ed Harris. Harris was cast in The Abyss, Apollo 13, and countless other classics. A powerhouse actor known for discipline and fire. When he and Pacino worked on a stage adaptation in the early 2000s, early rehearsals showed promise. But Harris brought an intensity Pacino recognized and didn't like. Harris challenged line readings, pacing, even the emotional architecture of scenes Pacino believed were sacred. Pacino found the process suffocating. Harris found Pacino evasive. Within weeks, the relationship fractured. The production continued, but Pacino quietly checked out. Harris reached out years later about another project. Pacino declined. No explanation, just silence. And in Pacino language, silence means the bridge is gone. Now let's rewind and jump to someone whose fallout with Pacino was anything but silent. William Friedkin. The fire behind The French Connection and The Exorcist thought Pacino would be the perfect match for his 1,980 film Cruising. He expected discipline, preparation, precision. Instead, Pacino delivered chaos late arrivals, improvisations, sudden tonal shifts, refusals to rehearse scenes the same way twice. Friedkin pushed. Pacino pushed back harder. Their clashes became legendary in industry circles. Late-night shouting, threats of firing, doors slammed, scripts torn apart. Friedkin later called Pacino the biggest disappointment I ever worked with. Pacino never returned the insult. He didn't have to. He simply never worked with Friedkin again. For director James Foley, the fallout was quieter but no less final. Glenn Ross gave Pacino one of his sharpest, most coiled performances. But Foley hated the improvisations, the constant line shifting, the unpredictability. Pacino hated being boxed in. The two men respected the final product but never wanted another round, and they never got one. And then there was Gene Hackman, blunt, impatient, allergic to anything he considered inefficient. Pacino was instinctive, emotional, exploratory. On the set of Scarecrow, they clashed like storm clouds. Hackman thought Pacino took too long. Pacino thought Hackman rushed too much. Their performances were legendary, but their partnership died the second the cameras stopped rolling. They avoided each other for decades afterward. Finally, we arrive at a name that almost no one associates with Pacino, Christopher Walken. Yes, the eccentric, otherworldly Walken once shared a small indie project with Pacino in the late 1970 seconds. But Walken's unpredictability wasn't the problem. Pacino admired that. What broke them was trust. Pacino reportedly confided a private frustration during filming, believing Walken would keep it between them. Walken, always socially offbeat, repeated it casually to a crew member, who repeated it to a producer, who repeated it to the studio. When it got back to Pacino, he shut down. The friendship dissolved instantly. Walken later tried to apologize. Pacino nodded politely and never spoke to him again. 7 names, 7 stories, 7 doors closed without a sound. And in each one, you can feel the same pattern, that quiet Pacino electricity that has nothing to do with rage or ego and everything to do with instinct. His legacy has never been about the loud moments. It's built on the hidden ones, the moments where he watches, listens, absorbs, and decides. Because to Pacino, the real battlefield isn't the screen, it's the space between takes, the silence after a line, the way a person carries themselves when the director calls cut. He reads people the same way he reads scripts, what they say, what they don't say, where the energy goes, and whether it lifts him or drains him. That's why these 7 names matter. They're not scandals. They're not grudges. They're not Hollywood gossip. They're guideposts, the secret map of one of cinema's most private men, marking the moments when the chemistry broke, when the rhythm collapsed, when the fire dimmed, and once that flame dims, even once, Pacino doesn't try to relight it. He doesn't shout, he doesn't blame, he doesn't explain, he just vanishes, and the silence says everything. It's the kind of silence only a veteran understands, the silence that protects the work, the craft, the art that has kept him alive for 50 years. And if diving into these hidden fractures, quiet fallouts, and lost partnerships taught you something new about Al Pacino, if it opened a door you didn't know existed behind all those iconic performances, make sure to give this video a like. It truly helps the story reach more people who love peeling back the curtain on old Hollywood. And I want to hear from you in the comments, because your voice shapes what we explore next. Which of these behind-the-scenes breaks shocked you the most? Was it Brando, the mentor who turned into a shadow? Michelle Pfeiffer, the co-star he never warmed to? De Niro, the legendary partner who was never actually a friend? Or the surprising addition of Ed Harris, the one man whose intensity Pacino admired, until it pushed too far? Maybe it was Gene Hackman's clash of energies, or the unspoken tension with Foley, or the creative war with Friedkin that scorched everything in its path. Tell me which one stuck with you. Tell me which pairing you wish had been repaired. Tell me which actor you still wish Pacino would reunite with, even though we all know he won't. Your comments don't just help the channel, they literally shape the next story. Every time you write a theory, share a memory, or point out a moment from a performance we might have overlooked, you're helping keep the golden age alive, one detail at a time. And if this journey into Pacino's private Hollywood made you hungry for more, for the feuds that never made the tabloids, the friendships that collapsed off camera, the careers that were changed forever by one tense rehearsal or one whispered comment, then make sure you're subscribed. Because the golden age didn't disappear. It just drifted into the shadows, waiting for someone to uncover it piece by piece. Turn on notifications so you never miss what's next, because the truth is, we're just getting started. There are still directors who vanished from the credits, stars who refused to speak to each other, icons who carried secrets to their graves, and every one of those stories deserves to be told before time buries them forever. So stay with us. The past still has a lot to say, and we're here to listen.